The Curious Inquiry. In the heart of the Galactic Academy, nestled among shimmering spires of crystalline architecture, Professor Tarek stood before his class of eager students. The lecture hall buzzed with anticipation as he prepared to delve into the complexities of interspecies relations. Tarek was known for his engaging teaching style and his ability to weave intricate narratives that captivated even the most distracted minds. As he began his lecture on galactic warfare protocols, Lyra, a bright-eyed Centurion student with iridescent scales that shifted colors with her emotions, raised her hand. "Professor Tarek," she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity, "why exactly are Deathworlders banned from participating in galactic warfare?" Tarek paused, his dorsal spines rippling in what could only be described as an amused sigh. He activated a holographic display with a gentle wave of his tentacle, bringing up an image of Earth, a small blue planet teeming with life. "Ah yes," he began, "the infamous Regulation 47B, colloquially known as, 'Please dear Cosmos, keep the humans away from our wars.'" The classroom erupted in murmurs as students exchanged glances. Tarek's compound eyes scanned their faces, noting the mixture of confusion and intrigue. "Would anyone like to hazard a guess as to why this regulation exists?" he prompted. A Vulpian student raised her paw hesitantly. "Because they're too violent?" "Actually," Tarek replied with a shake of his head, "it's quite the opposite. Humans are remarkably restrained in their modern era." He paused for effect, letting the students digest this unexpected revelation. "The real reason," he continued, "is far more interesting." He brought up another hologram displaying various human military uniforms throughout history. "You see," he said, "the problem isn't that humans are too violent, it's that they're too creative when it comes to warfare, and worse yet, they're disturbingly friendly about it." The class stared at him in confusion. Lyra leaned forward eagerly as Tarek prepared to share a personal account from his time serving as a cultural attaché during joint military exercises with humans. "It all started with what we thought would be a simple training exercise," Tarek recalled vividly. He had been younger then, his spines vibrant purple instead of their current dignified blue. The human contingent had arrived for joint military exercises with the Galactic Alliance forces, and things had gone sideways almost immediately. "Hey there!" Commander Jackson had greeted him exuberantly upon arrival. "Love what you've done with the battle stage, very Death Star chic. But you might want to cover that thermal exhaust port." Tarek had stammered in surprise at this strange greeting, a fist bump, before realizing it was merely an attempt at humor. Just a little Star Wars reference. Jackson had winked before diving into discussions about combat simulations. What followed was an experience unlike any other. Instead of adhering to traditional engagement protocols, the humans had completely derailed the carefully planned exercises almost immediately. They convinced 3 enemy crews to defect by introducing them to something called pizza and movie night. "Can you believe it?" Tarek exclaimed to his class as he recounted this momentous occasion. They turned what should have been an intense military exercise into an impromptu social gathering. The students chuckled at the absurdity of it all as Tarek continued detailing how they reprogrammed training drones to perform synchronized swimming in space and transformed the command center into what they termed a rave using repurposed emergency lighting. "But this isn't how war is supposed to work," his superior officer had sputtered in disbelief while watching human and alien crews collaborate on something called a space barbecue. "Why not?" Commander Jackson had replied casually while flipping synthetic meat patties on a modified plasma converter. "If we're going to spend time with our theoretical enemies, we might as well make friends. Anyone want a burger? We've got vegan options for our methane-breathing friends." Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief as she processed this information. How could anyone think that turning war into a party was acceptable? Yet there was something undeniably captivating about these humans' approach. As Professor Tarek continued his tale, he explained how humans possessed an uncanny ability to turn military engagements into social occasions, a practice they referred to as winning hearts and minds but which went far beyond mere diplomacy. He brought up another hologram showcasing footage from what became known as the infamous Riel campaign. Watch what happens when these human engineers encounter a supposedly impenetrable enemy fortification, he instructed his students. The footage revealed humans setting up mobile cafes outside enemy fortifications while offering free coffee and pastries to anyone who dared venture out. They initiated weekly book clubs with enemy garrisons and eventually converted entire fortifications into paintball arenas for joint recreational activities. But they were supposed to be fighting, exclaimed an arachnid student in horror. Exactly. Tarek replied passionately. When questioned about their tactics during these exercises, Commander Jackson simply said, "Why waste time fighting when we can all just hang out instead? Besides, have you tried Sarah's chocolate chip cookies? They're to die for." The classroom erupted into laughter at this absurdity while Tarek concluded his account of how humans turned potential conflicts into opportunities for connection through shared experiences rather than violence. As he deactivated the holograms and glanced around at his captivated audience filled with stunned silence mixed with amusement, Lyra raised her hand once more. "But wouldn't it be better if more species approached conflict this way?" she asked thoughtfully. Professor Tarek's spines shifted colors contemplatively before responding. "Perhaps," he mused aloud. But the Galactic Council felt that allowing humans to continue their approach would fundamentally alter the nature of warfare itself. He paused for effect before adding with a hint of irony in his voice, "After all, it's difficult to maintain military discipline when your entire fleet is busy organizing an intergalactic baking competition." As class ended and students filed out chattering excitedly about what they had learned that day, Tarek couldn't help but smile at how refreshing these stories about humanity were compared to traditional notions of conflict resolution within galactic society. Little did they know that this was just the beginning. There were many more tales yet untold about why Deathworlders were banned from fighting in the galaxy, a narrative woven intricately through laughter amidst chaos, a lesson learned not just by one professor but echoed throughout every corner of existence itself. The training exercise. The Galactic Academy buzzed with an unusual energy as students filed into the training facility for the day's joint military exercise. Commander Jackson, a human officer with a reputation for unorthodox tactics, stood at the front, his enthusiasm palpable. Beside him was Lieutenant Mira, a seasoned Centurion officer known for her strategic brilliance and no-nonsense attitude. Today, they were tasked with leading a mixed group of soldiers from various species through a series of combat simulations designed to foster cooperation and understanding. "Welcome, everyone," Jackson called out, his voice booming across the room. "Today's exercise is all about teamwork. We'll be testing our skills in a simulated combat scenario, but with a twist." He flashed a grin that made some of the more serious officers exchange wary glances. Mira stepped forward, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "What kind of twist are we talking about, Commander?" she asked, her tone skeptical. Jackson leaned in conspiratorially. "We're going to incorporate some unconventional tactics. Think outside the box. We want to see how creativity can enhance our strategic approaches." Mira raised an eyebrow. "Creativity? In warfare?" "Exactly," Jackson replied enthusiastically. "Let's show them that combat doesn't always have to be about brute force." As they divided into teams, Jackson's enthusiasm was infectious. He paired humans with Centurions, Vulpian warriors, and even a few members of the enigmatic Phono species. The diverse group exchanged nervous glances but quickly fell into discussions about their strengths and weaknesses. "All right, team." Jackson clapped his hands together. "Our objective is to capture the enemy stronghold while ensuring minimal casualties and maximum fun. Let's get creative." The exercise commenced with a simulated assault on a fortified position. Jackson led his team forward, employing strategies that involved elaborate distractions rather than direct confrontation. Instead of storming the stronghold head-on, they set up a series of pranks and diversions. "Watch this," Jackson whispered to Mira as he activated a small drone equipped with colorful smoke grenades. The drone zipped toward the enemy position, releasing vibrant clouds of purple and green smoke that obscured visibility. "What are you doing?" Mira hissed, half amused and half exasperated. "Creating confusion." Jackson replied with a wink. As the smoke billowed outwards, laughter erupted from their team as they watched their opponents scramble in disarray. The Centurion soldiers found themselves caught between laughter and frustration as they tried to regain control over the situation. Meanwhile, on the opposing side, an equally bewildered Vulpian commander attempted to rally his troops amidst the chaos. "Focus! Focus!" he shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of human laughter echoing through the training ground. Jackson seized the moment to lead his team in an unconventional maneuver, an impromptu dance-off right in front of the enemy stronghold. "Let's show them what we've got," he declared as he began to dance wildly, encouraging his teammates to join in. Mira could hardly believe her eyes as she watched soldiers from both sides break into spontaneous dance moves. The atmosphere shifted from one of tension to camaraderie as laughter filled the air. "What is happening?" Mira muttered incredulously to herself. As the dance-off continued, Jackson took advantage of the distraction to send in another squad through a less guarded route. They moved swiftly and silently while their opponents were preoccupied with trying to outdo each other in dance moves. "Now this is how you win a battle," Jackson exclaimed triumphantly as they successfully captured the stronghold without firing a single shot. Eventually, both teams regrouped after the exercise concluded. Laughter still lingered in the air as they shared stories about their experiences during the simulation. Mira couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief mingled with admiration for Jackson's approach. "Commander," she said slowly, "I have to admit, that was not what I expected." Jackson chuckled heartily. "See? Combat doesn't always have to be serious. We can achieve our objectives while having fun." Mira shook her head in disbelief but couldn't suppress a smile. "You might just be onto something." As they debriefed after the exercise, it became clear that this unconventional approach had fostered stronger bonds among participants than any traditional training session ever could. Soldiers who had once viewed each other with suspicion now exchanged jokes and laughter as they recounted their experiences. "Next time," Mira suggested playfully, "maybe we should incorporate karaoke into our tactics." Jackson's eyes lit up at the idea. Now that would be something. Imagine using music as a weapon. The conversation flowed easily among them as they discussed potential future exercises filled with creativity and collaboration rather than hostility and competition. However, not everyone was pleased with this new approach. In another corner of the training facility stood several traditionalist officers who watched with disdain as their comrades celebrated what they deemed frivolous antics rather than serious military training. "They're undermining everything we stand for," one officer grumbled under his breath as he observed Jackson and Mira laughing together with their mixed teams. "But look at how well it worked," another officer countered hesitantly. "They achieved their objective without any casualties. Maybe there's something to this?" The traditionalists exchanged skeptical glances but remained unconvinced by what they perceived as reckless behavior disguised as creativity. Meanwhile, back at the Galactic Academy's lecture hall where Professor Zix had been observing from afar through holographic feeds, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride watching these young officers embrace new ideas while still fulfilling their duties effectively. Perhaps there was hope for interspecies cooperation after all. Perhaps these Deathworlders had much more to offer than mere brute strength or firepower. They brought joy into even the most serious situations. As day turned into night within those hallowed halls filled with laughter echoing through every corner, Professor Zix felt optimistic about what lay ahead for all species involved in this grand experiment called galactic diplomacy. The Proxima Incident. The atmosphere aboard the flagship of the Galactic Alliance was tense as Admiral Klyn prepared for what was anticipated to be the largest space battle in recent history. The two fleets, one composed of the Galactic Alliance and the other a coalition of hostile forces from across the cosmos, were poised to clash at Proxima Centauri. Kalwinen, a seasoned veteran with a reputation for strategic brilliance, understood the stakes all too well. "Admiral, all ships are in position," his first officer reported, her voice steady despite the palpable tension in the command center. "Good," Kalwinen replied, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse of stars visible through the viewport. "Prepare for engagement protocols. Weapons primed, shields raised." As they awaited the signal to commence hostilities, an unexpected sound filled the air, a faint melody that seemed to drift through the ship's communication systems. Kalwinen furrowed his brow, glancing around at his crew, who were equally puzzled. "Is that music?" he asked incredulously. "It appears so, sir," his first officer confirmed, her antennae twitching in confusion. "It's coming from the human ships." Before Kalwinen could respond, a familiar voice crackled over the comms. "Hey there, Admiral. This is Commander Sarah Chen from the human fleet. If we're going to do this, we might as well have a soundtrack. Any requests?" Kalwinen's jaw dropped in disbelief. "What is happening?" he muttered under his breath as he watched his crew exchange bewildered glances. The humans had somehow hacked into the universal communication channels and were broadcasting classic rock music across both fleets. The opening riffs of "Sweet Home Alabama" echoed through space, creating an atmosphere that was anything but conducive to war. "Commander Chen." Kalwinen barked into the comms. "This is not a time for music. We are about to engage in battle." "Oh, come on," Chen replied cheerfully. "Lighten up. It's just a little fun before we get down to business. We can even have a dance-off if you want." Kalwinen shook his head in disbelief. This was not how military engagements were supposed to unfold. But as he glanced around at his crew, who were now tapping their feet and bobbing their heads to the beat, he realized that this was spiraling out of control. What followed was perhaps one of the most surreal moments in galactic military history. Instead of launching torpedoes and engaging in traditional combat maneuvers, both fleets found themselves embroiled in an impromptu debate about music genres over their communication channels. "Rock is clearly superior," shouted one of Kalwinen's officers. "No way. Have you heard classical?" "It's timeless," retorted a human ensign. As discussions turned into playful banter and then into an all-out dance battle conducted via ship movements, Kalwinen felt a mixture of frustration and disbelief wash over him. "Are we seriously doing this?" he asked aloud as he watched ships maneuver in sync with the music, creating patterns that resembled dance choreography rather than tactical formations. Meanwhile, Commander Chen was busy organizing an interfleet sports tournament right in the middle of what was supposed to be a fierce battle. "All right everyone," she announced enthusiastically over the comms. "While we're all distracted by this epic dance-off, let's set up some friendly competitions. Who's up for laser tag?" Kalwinen could hardly believe what he was hearing. "This is madness," he shouted into the comms. Yet despite his protests, Kalwinen found himself unable to stop what had become a chaotic yet strangely entertaining spectacle unfolding before him. Ships began forming teams for laser tag matches while others set up makeshift food stations offering snacks and refreshments. As laughter echoed across both fleets, Kalwinen felt an odd sense of camaraderie building among those who were once sworn enemies. The tension that had filled the air moments earlier dissipated into something lighter, something resembling friendship. Hours passed as they engaged in games and friendly competitions instead of combat. The human crew members brought out pizzas and drinks while sharing stories about their home planet, stories that fascinated even those who had previously viewed them with suspicion. Finally, as night fell over Proxima Centauri and both fleets had exhausted their energy from dancing and playing games, the atmosphere shifted once more when Commander Chen proposed something unprecedented: an official ceasefire. "Let's call it a truce," she declared over the comms with infectious enthusiasm. We can negotiate peace while enjoying some good food and music together. Kalwyn hesitated but realized that this might be their best chance at avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. With a reluctant sigh, he agreed to her proposal. As they gathered for what would become known as the Proxima Peace Party, Kalwyn couldn't help but marvel at how absurd yet effective this approach had been. Diplomacy through entertainment was not something he had ever considered, but here they were, sharing laughter and stories instead of weapons. By dawn, what had started as a potential battle turned into negotiations that would ultimately reshape relations between their factions for years to come. In retrospect, Kalwyn would later recount this incident as one of those rare moments where humanity's unique ability to foster connection through joy turned a dire situation into an opportunity for peace, a lesson learned amidst laughter instead of conflict. As they signed treaties and agreements over slices of pizza and glasses filled with fizzy drinks, the realization dawned upon him: perhaps it wasn't just about winning wars, perhaps it was about finding common ground through shared experiences, even if those experiences included dance-offs and karaoke contests amidst cosmic chaos. And so concluded another chapter in galactic history, a testament to why Deathworlders like humans had been banned from traditional warfare, not because they were dangerous but because they possessed an infuriating knack for transforming any military engagement into what they called a party. The Galactic Council's decision. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Delegates from various species gathered to discuss the implications of the recent behavior exhibited by the humans during their military engagements. The atmosphere was charged with tension as traditionalists clashed with progressives, each side arguing passionately about the future of warfare and diplomacy. Admiral Kalwyn stood at the forefront, his expression a mixture of determination and concern. "We must address the issue at hand," he began, his voice steady. "The actions of the human delegation have fundamentally altered our understanding of conflict resolution. While their methods may seem unconventional, we cannot ignore the results they've achieved." Counselor Vexer, a stern Andromedan with an impressive array of ceremonial headgear, interjected. "But Admiral, this is not how warfare has been conducted for millennia. We risk undermining the very fabric of our military traditions." Kalwyn took a deep breath, preparing to counter Vexer's argument. "With all due respect, Counselor, we must consider that our traditional methods have led to countless conflicts and suffering. The humans have shown us that it is possible to resolve disputes through camaraderie rather than combat." A Vulpian delegate raised her paw, eager to contribute. "I attended one of their peace parties last month. It was astonishing. Instead of fighting over territory, we played games and shared stories. We even negotiated a treaty over a game of charades." The council chamber erupted into murmurs as delegates exchanged glances, intrigued by this new perspective. Kalwyn seized the moment to elaborate further. "Imagine if we could transform our military engagements into opportunities for collaboration and friendship. The humans have demonstrated that laughter can be more powerful than weapons." Counselor Vexer remained unconvinced. "But what about discipline? What about readiness? If we allow this frivolity to infiltrate our military practices, we risk losing our edge in combat." "Perhaps it's time to redefine what readiness means," Kalwyn replied firmly. "The humans have shown that teamwork and trust can foster stronger alliances than fear ever could. We need to adapt or risk being left behind." As discussions continued, Admiral Jessica Chen entered the chamber with an air of confidence. Her modified uniform sparkled under the lights as she approached the podium. "Thank you for your patience," she began, her voice warm yet authoritative. "I believe I can provide some clarity on this matter." The council turned its attention to her, intrigued by her presence. "Our initiative has proven successful in transforming potential conflict zones into thriving communities," she explained. "We've seen a significant reduction in hostilities and an increase in interspecies friendships since implementing our approach." Kalwyn nodded in agreement. "The statistics speak for themselves. Conflict rates have plummeted by 87%, while interspecies friendships have skyrocketed by 342%. This isn't just about fun, it's about building lasting connections that transcend our differences. Vexer shifted uncomfortably in his seat but remained silent as Chen continued her presentation. She showcased data highlighting the success of their initiatives: paintball arenas replacing battlefields, karaoke contests fostering diplomacy, and themed events bringing together species that had once been bitter enemies. Now, Jessica said with a twinkle in her eye, I'd like to propose an official partnership between the Galactic Council and our newly formed Galactic Peace and Party Planning Committee. Gasps filled the chamber as delegates processed this unexpected proposition. By collaborating with us, she continued, we can create a new framework for conflict resolution, one that emphasizes joy and connection over violence and division. A young Centurion delegate raised her hand hesitantly. But what if other species don't want to participate? What if they prefer traditional methods? Jessica smiled reassuringly. That's where we come in. Our goal is to demonstrate how effective these methods can be through example. We'll invite everyone to join us for interspecies events, no pressure. Just fun. Vexer finally spoke up again, his voice laced with skepticism. And what if these events fail? What if they lead to chaos instead of unity? Then we adapt. Jessica replied confidently. We're not suggesting that every issue can be solved through parties alone, we're offering an alternative approach, a way to open dialogues where none existed before. As discussions continued throughout the day, it became increasingly clear that opinions were shifting within the council chamber. Traditionalists began to see merit in Jessica's arguments while progressives rallied behind KLYNN's vision for a more inclusive future. Hours passed as heated debates gave way to thoughtful reflections on what it meant to be part of a galaxy filled with diverse cultures and histories. Finally, after much deliberation, Councillor Vexer rose once more to address his fellow delegates. While I remain cautious about this new direction, he admitted grudgingly, I cannot deny that change is necessary if we are to thrive as a collective. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber as KLYNN seized upon this momentous opportunity. Then let us take a bold step forward, he urged passionately. Let us embrace this chance for transformation, not just for ourselves but for generations yet unborn who will inherit this galaxy. With renewed energy surging through them all, the council members began drafting proposals aimed at integrating human-inspired conflict resolution techniques into their existing frameworks. As they worked late into the night, ideas flowed freely amidst laughter and camaraderie, each delegate contributing their unique perspectives toward crafting something truly revolutionary. By dawn's light, the Galactic Council had officially adopted a resolution endorsing collaboration with humans on peace initiatives, marking an unprecedented shift away from traditional warfare toward innovative approaches rooted in connection rather than division. As delegates filed out of the chamber, filled with hope and excitement, they couldn't help but wonder what new adventures awaited them on this uncharted path toward peace, a journey made possible by embracing joy amidst chaos. A new era of diplomacy. The annual symposium on interstellar peace and security had reached an unprecedented level of excitement. The once austere conference hall of the Galactic Council had been transformed into a vibrant cosmic carnival, complete with holographic decorations, floating refreshment stations, and an expansive dance floor. Diplomats from traditionally hostile species mingled freely, attempting to master the electric slide while enjoying an array of intergalactic delicacies. Professor Zix, now serving as the head of the newly established Department of Human-Inspired Diplomatic Innovation, surveyed the scene with a mix of pride and disbelief. Just a year ago, many of these species were on the brink of war over territorial disputes and resource rights. Now, they were engaged in friendly competitions and laughter, all thanks to the humans' unconventional approach to diplomacy. Remarkable, isn't it? Admiral Jessica Chen said, materializing beside him in a modified military uniform adorned with LED lights that twinkled like stars. A year ago, those two species were ready to clash over mining rights in the Whisker Nebula. Now they're arguing about whether it's cheating to use enhanced night vision in laser tag. Zix chuckled at the absurdity of it all. Indeed, Admiral. The cultural transformation has been unprecedented. I must admit some of these changes have been rather unexpected. His spines shifted to a thoughtful shade of blue as he reflected on how far they had come. As they walked through the carnival atmosphere, Zix observed groups of Vulpian delegates challenging their historic rivals, the Phono, to friendly games of laser tag. Instead of weapons being drawn in anger, they were now wielding brightly colored laser blasters and laughing as they dodged around inflatable barriers. Who would have thought that a simple game could bridge such deep-seated divides? Zix mused aloud. Jessica smiled knowingly. It's not just about the games, it's about creating shared experiences. The humans have this unique ability to turn any situation into an opportunity for connection. We've seen it time and again, whether through food, music, or play. The professor nodded in agreement as they passed by a booth where delegates were sampling different flavors of pizza, an offering that had quickly become a staple at diplomatic events since the humans introduced their culinary delights. Pizza diplomacy, he remarked with a hint of amusement. Exactly. Jessica exclaimed. It's all part of what we call culinary diplomacy. Sharing meals fosters trust and camaraderie among species that once viewed each other with suspicion. As they continued to mingle with delegates from various planets, Zix couldn't help but notice how relaxed everyone seemed. The atmosphere was charged with laughter and joy rather than tension and animosity. Look over there, Jessica pointed toward a group of diplomats gathered around a karaoke stage. That's Commander Jackson leading them in a rendition of "I Will Survive." Zix watched as Jackson belted out the lyrics with gusto while others joined in enthusiastically. It was hard to believe that just months prior, many of these same individuals would have considered each other enemies. Do you think this approach will last? Zix asked thoughtfully. Jessica shrugged slightly but smiled confidently. I believe it will. The key is to keep fostering these connections through shared experiences. We've created something special here, an environment where dialogue thrives instead of conflict. Just then, an announcement echoed through the carnival, "Attention all delegates. It's time for our annual Cosmic Trivia Challenge. Gather your teams for a chance to win fabulous prizes." Zix felt a surge of excitement as groups began forming around him. Shall we join? He asked Jessica. Absolutely. Let's show them how humans do trivia, she replied with enthusiasm. As they joined a team comprised of delegates from various species, Zix felt a sense of unity wash over him. Questions ranged from galactic history to pop culture references that had become popular since humans entered the scene. With each correct answer, cheers erupted from their team while friendly banter filled the air as rival teams competed against one another. It was exhilarating, a stark contrast to the tense negotiations that had defined previous symposia. After several rounds filled with laughter and camaraderie, their team emerged victorious, earning them not only prizes but also newfound friendships across species lines. As the event drew to a close and delegates began exchanging contact information for future collaborations, Zix reflected on how far they had come since implementing human-inspired initiatives into their diplomatic practices. Who would have thought we'd be here, he mused aloud as he watched delegates share hugs and laughter while discussing plans for future gatherings. Jessica smiled warmly at him. It just goes to show that sometimes all it takes is a little creativity, and maybe some pizza, to change the course of history. Zix chuckled again as he glanced around at the vibrant scene unfolding before him, a celebration not just of peace but also of connection forged through joy amidst chaos. As they prepared to leave the carnival atmosphere behind, the professor felt hopeful about what lay ahead for interspecies relations within this vast galaxy filled with diverse cultures waiting to be explored together.